Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Alia Ibrahim. I am a journalist and the co-founder of ARIJ, an independent media based in Beirut. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here to have this chat with Rana Sabbagh. For those of you who don't know Rana, most recently she's the winner of the ICFJ Night Trailblazer Award. She was the senior editor for MENA at OCCRP, and she has 4 decades of journalism that includes being the founder of ARIJ in 2006, with which she introduced investigative journalism to the Arab world. Before I start asking Rana some questions, I want to tell you a small story. A couple of days ago, on April 8th, a judge in Beirut finally issued a decision concerning Lebanon's central bank governor, and he concluded that Salameh has been engaged in illicit enrichment. This paves the way for an indictment that you are expecting very recently. On the same day, 5 years ago, on April 8, 2020, we were in Beirut and our central bank governor was on TV, and he gave us a small lead about an investigation we've been working on for months and getting nowhere. So I called Rana that afternoon, and we needed a partner in Europe. I called Rana and I said, we need help. And 3 hours later, she gave us the answers about the company that you were looking into. And in that evening, she said, what else do you need? For the coming year, we worked with the team at OCCRP that Rana put together, and that I thank, without whom our central bank governor probably would have been president in Lebanon now. Over the years, when we started this investigation, everybody was saying, this is the most powerful man in Lebanon. He had actually a very good reputation, one of the most untouchable people. He's in prison today, and a lot of people worked on that story over the years. But it started on April 8th, 5 years ago, very much thanks to Rana on that day, taking that phone call and giving us some answers we needed. So on behalf of myself and of ARIJ and my fellow Lebanese citizens, thank you. Anyway, I want to start with you, Rana. 40 years almost in journalism. A lot has changed. A lot has happened with you. You've been fired from your jobs at least a couple of times. You've been by the same person, I guess. And I don't want to take too much in the question, so I'll leave it to you. How have things changed, and are they easier or more difficult now?
Well, our job is not the easiest job. Being an investigative, our job is not the easiest job. Being an investigative journalist is even more difficult. And being an investigative journalist in the Middle East or in Central Asia is like throwing yourself into a big fire. You're constantly living day by day on the edge. What has changed? I think the biggest problem we face today is the surveillance of governments. They're really ahead of us. They have managed to invest a lot in the money. Unfortunately, it's the Gulf states, notably Saudi and the UAE, that have really invested a lot in surveillance, the Israelis as well. So there comes the problem of source protection. You know, today we are talking to sources on the phone, and this should stop. We should go back to the old practices of seeing them face to face, taking hand notes, hiding them in places, and really, it's the ethical commitment to protect the sources before we protect ourselves. We have to educate our sources, and we have to tell them that because they're talking to us, they are under surveillance, but they also could be under surveillance because they are saying things to us that nobody wants to hear. They're basically our deep throats. So that's the biggest problem. The second problem is that social media has allowed politicians and ministers and kings and queens and presidents to go directly to their people and talk to them without having the filter of professional journalists asking questions. And this is really extremely bad because they're just getting away without being questioned. And our job is to continue questioning these people and questioning every word they say, because in every word we have to assume it's a lie.
Take me back a little bit, Rana. You started investigative journalism in 2006 when the word investigative journalism did not even have a meaning. It's still very difficult. We're seeing a lot more pushback from governments, from organized crime. Do you see a point?
Of course. I mean, imagine if the world stops having investigations and lets the officials continue engaging in corruption or supporting corruption or using laws for their benefits. Of course, we have to continue doing that, but we have to know that it is a difficult job. It's a mission, it's a choice. Whoever does not want to have a difficult job should not go into investigative journalism. He can still be a journalist. And I'm not saying that to basically belittle the effort. I'm just saying that being an investigative journalist means 1,000 times more challenges than being a normal person.
But take us a little bit to the beginnings, Rana. So, compare a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. I remember when IMS came and asked me to set up the Arab Reporters for Investigative Journalism, ARIJ. And they said you have to work in 3 Arab countries and you have to spread the culture of investigative journalism, which is really not common because the politics don't encourage it, the legal system does not. There's no right to information and the professional skills are quite weak because most journalists are products of state universities that really have a one-track-minded educational system. So wherever I went, whoever asked me, what are you doing? And I would say investigative journalism, and they would laugh. They're like, you're stupid, you're wasting your time, nothing is gonna happen, nothing is gonna change. Even when we were investigating Riyad Salameh, you're wasting your time, nothing is gonna change, you will see these people are more powerful. Really, today Riyad Salameh is in jail, he's being accused, he's unable to leave jail, he's unable to travel to Europe, he's wanted by the Interpol, and he's had all his assets confiscated based on the 4 investigations we did with ARIJ. Now, from that day when IMS came to me, it was working in Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan. And I remember it was when some Danish journalist burned the Prophet's photo, the cartoon, Muhammad cartoon. And I was going to see the Minister of Information to introduce myself, and he goes like, Danes, good things? Look, Prophet of Muhammad, you know, these are bad people. I said, no, but you know, we're trying to do something good for our societies, give us a chance. Now, from these 3 countries, with 2 people, when I left ARIJ in 2019, end of 2019, I left it with a budget from 252 years to 1.6 million a year. I think ARIJ created a movement across the Arab world. ARIJ changed the scene of investigative journalism. Today in this room, I have people, colleagues that started with me at ARIJ, and today they are running investigative centers with the support of ARIJ, and they are working with OCCRP with me while I was there to do investigations. One of them is Mohammed Bassiki from Syria, Siraj. Please stand up. Muhammad was followed by the ancient regime, and they were going to deploy a group of 8 intelligence operatives to follow him in France and the rest of the gang because we were seen as bad people collaborating with the West to harm Syria. There's Ilyas Hlaz from Algeria running Tuala, which is the most independent. Please stand up. Of course, Daraj. The investigative unit began with the help of ARIJ. And I don't know if Muammar Urabi from Palestine is here. Also, his network began investigations with our support. So today, wherever I go, the best highlight of my life was setting up ARIJ and creating a movement out of nothing and basically telling everybody that doubted us, we succeeded, we are here to stay, and we are here to flourish and to keep introducing that. So.
بس رنا يعني just to avoid this being a cheerleading exercise, today the state of journalism generally, we're seeing the amount of pressure, be it because of the tech companies, because of polarizations of opinions, because of coverages, because it's not in its greatest status. Investigative journalism, particularly as a very expensive form of journalism, is really facing serious challenges. I know that you yourself decided to eventually become a freelance, like going independent, completely independent, even as a brand name. Why did you choose that road, and how do you place that within the general framework?
The last 10 years were extremely difficult with the wars that began post 2011. I remember when Basiki had to take the boat from Turkey to France. I was the chief editor at ARIJ, and I could not sleep for 2 weeks. He got arrested. I remember we had to evacuate another colleague from the ISIS-controlled area because we were caught filming the new books they were printing, enticing everybody against secular regimes. And I had to take him out on that day. They fired a barrel bomb on his house, and his mom and sister died. So I remember these 3 years where I had to deal with personal misery and at the same time government pressure were really extremely hard, and they took a toll on me. I'm not saying that things have changed. Things are even more difficult now because, unfortunately, the West itself has now put its security ahead of what it used to call democracy, ethics. You know, I looked today at a diplomat who asked me, yeah, but the state of journalism in Jordan is really bad. And I want to tell him in his face, what about the state of journalism in your own country when your own president is doing everything to the media and really calling them names and banning them? I mean, really, the whole notion of the West having a democracy is the biggest lie ever, and it shocks me. I'm half German. So this thing today, like I used to tell my journalists, we have to be ethical, we have to be correct, we have to be this and this and that, because this is what the best practices are. They don't exist anymore. Today, it's like the survival of the fittest. Secondly, under the guise of fighting terror, which is legitimate, there has been a lot of abuse by issuing new laws that could put me in jail if I, for example, ticked on a Facebook post that talks about a jihadi by accident. It could put me in jail if I am harming relations between, say, Jordan and Saudi Arabia, because I would say, for example, the king of Saudi Arabia arrived at the airport on a wheelchair, which he would probably because he can't walk, and then the embassy would contact the Jordanians and they would tell them she's making fun of our leader, and then I will be put in jail. They would not put me in jail for attacking Israel or attacking America, but they will put me in jail for attacking an Arab. The money that we pay, I mean, every time I worked with investigative reporters in the Middle East, the pay was extremely small compared to the effort that was put in. But I think that on top of that, they were getting skills. When I went to OCCRP, on every investigation, it was 10 people working between the person who did the due diligence, follow the money, the fact-checking, the reporting, the layout, etc. You know, it was a huge operation. So we were telling the journalists, you're getting skills, you're getting exposure, we're creating impact. And, you know, journalists were never rich unless they made it really big. I mean, we are really one of the worst paid journalists. I mean, journalists are the worst paid. Professionally. So a lot of people are giving up, and I don't blame them. A lot of people have had to reinvent themselves from being very professional journalists to becoming ambassadors for the countries they were criticizing, or ministers of information defending decisions that they used to write against. And I look at them and I feel very bad, but I can't put myself, maybe they have families, maybe they have kids. But I think, you know, journalists should not work for the government. In the 2 times I was kicked out of my job, it was the orchestration of the Jordanian intelligence with a prime minister then. Both were extremely corrupt. I was highlighting this. I was kicked out of my job by a colleague who replaced me, and today this colleague 2 times replaced me at Al Ghad and at the Jordan Times, and he happens to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Jordan. So this guy was one like us, you know, he used to write, he used to be critical, and today he is really one of the worst enemies of journalists. So, you know, it's a horrible profession, but you choose it and you stick to it and you try to defend yourself and make the best out of the worst.
Rana, I'm going to ask you something a little bit. I know it's a bit sensitive, but where do you draw the line when you're dealing with people, especially those who are working in dangerous areas? I know very well that you've worked closely with correspondents in Gaza now. You've always worked with... where do you draw the line to protect yourself?
First of all, I think collaborations are very important because often when we are doing these high-hitting investigations, it was OCCRP that wrote the rights of reply to the officials, like with Riyad Salameh. We had to engage with him to protect our local partners. In Gaza, for example, I worked with a journalist, Mohammed Abu Shahmeh, and we did not put his name on the two investigations because they involved the Egyptian intelligence. But then he won a prize, and he came back to me and said, look, Rana, I'm going to die anyway, and I want to die with dignity, and I want people to know that I'm a professional journalist, and I want to come out and put my name on the prize. I looked at him, I said, Muhammad, you have 5 kids. I don't want you to die. You might have to go through Egypt one day. I don't care anymore. We're dying anyway. So I made him sign a paper, and I said, I'm not responsible if anything happens. Of course, if it's a sensitive story, we have an editorial meeting every day. We talk to our bosses every day. We have a manual, and sometimes we hold the stories off until the right moment comes. But of course, no story is worth putting in danger any journalist. The most important thing is having facts. Even if we go to court, we should have our facts ready, otherwise we will lose it big time. We have to be very, very worried about these SLAPs, which are the strategic legal lawsuits that are being filed, for example, by a Lebanese guy who's upset at Daraj. He will go to London, and then you're stuck in the court until they clear you, and it could take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So I feel like the whole world is ganging against us, whether they are governments, they are lawyers, they are, it's tough, but
But we're ganging up too.
Of course, we have to.
I want to open the floor if anybody would like to ask any questions.
I would like to know if the journalist is still alive.
Muhammad, yes.
Mohammed Abu Shahmeh.
Yes.
I don't want to cry now because this guy breaks my heart. He's looking for money to get 3 solar panels to be able to drink water. He's had to leave his home and his tent 5 times, moving from area to area. And he was in that tent 3 days ago when the 2 journalists were killed inside the hospital, and 8 others were injured. And he called me at 2 in the morning crying. He said, I don't want to be a journalist. I don't want to live here. Please take me out. And every day I'm getting messages, please take us out. So this guy breaks my heart. He is one of the best people that I have trained, is committed, is doing everything. If you tell him, go jump, he will go and jump. But he's now in the situation where he has really given up.
2 of his daughters have been wounded also.
All I can do is, I call him every day. I make puppet show to his kids to make them laugh. The other day, his 2-year-old kid said, Auntie, can you send us an apple? And, every time a journalist is killed, we hear the same narrative. The army is going to investigate, or a Hamas operative was in that tent, and nobody seems to be able to hold that country to account. Unfortunately, there are no longer any international courts that are able to stop this evil that is happening around the world.
Any other questions? I have to ask you about being a woman on that job. Has that been a thing for you? And is it still a thing?
I think one of the main reasons why I was able to survive is my mom is German, and I have 2 brothers who are younger than me, and she never ever discriminated against us. I had a very supportive family that believed in educating their women back in the 50s. So from a structural point of view, it was okay. It was not okay to go when I worked for Reuters agency at 4 in the morning to sit on the pavement waiting for Yasser Arafat to come out and give us a statement, because he loved to work at night and sleep the whole day. I used to sit there with cameramen, all men, and garbage collectors, and they used to look at me from up to down. There was a lot of sexual harassment. There was a lot of flirtation. I always had to wear these clothes that made me look like a garbage bag. I never ever put makeup. I wanted people to look at me as a professional, neither a woman nor a man. I tried to hide all my features. I tried very hard to educate myself so that when I'm put in a situation, I can argue with these people and I can let them respect me because of what is in here and not because of what is on the outside. So no, it was not easy. I mean, I can tell you stories and stories of ministers trying to kiss me, trying to push me to, one day an ambassador pushed me against the wall, you know, he wanted to he was an Arab ambassador from Sudan. So it was horrible. I said, if you touch me, I'm gonna scream and I'm gonna make a scandal. So yeah, you just have to be strong.
Is it easier now?
Sorry?
Is it easier now for women, you say?
I believe when I started, we were 3 women that were doing political reporting. It was Lamis and Doni and 2 others. And today, I think in Jordan, there are around 1,200 journalists. Unfortunately, also, a lot of them call themselves journalists when they are not journalists. They are probably imposters using social media to become journalists, you know. And often they are using, I don't want to say the bad word, but, you know, they're focusing more on their looks and on the low cuts and the short skirts than on the content. So I think this is giving a bad impression for women, especially in the Arab world, when really we are still seen as objects for the objects.
There is a question here and a question there, and we have 5 minutes, so we have to be conscious of time. Please, go ahead.
Thanks, Alia. Always nice to see you, Rana. I just want to ask you a question. Like, you worked a lot with Siraj and other journalists on Syria during the...
Maybe you take the microphone, Rayas.
Thank you. Keith. Thanks, Rana and Alia. You worked a lot with Siraj and many other journalists on Syria during the dictator Assad, and you have really good go on him. What do you think now is happening? Are you planning to work under the new ones? I'm not going to name them even. Are you planning to carry on, or what do you think is happening there in regards with freedom of press or investigative journalism? Thank you.
Definitely, I'm still working pro bono with Siraj. I support ARIJ whenever they ask me. I'm still committed to whatever I started, and it's just a phase. I needed a break. I think I told all my colleagues it's very important to investigate the people who stole the assets, but it's more important now to look at the newcomers that are going to surround themselves by the president and are going to, again, carve the deals with probably Turkey, which is now running the show in Syria. So I'm saying in every country, the businessmen are the easiest to flip because it's about money. And I think many of the old businessmen have settled their accounts with this new regime, have given them lots of money to drop their cases. They're going to work with this regime, and in no time, when you are an autocracy, which is what we are seeing, there will be corruption for sure. When your brother is the head of the cabinet, when your other son-in-law is the president of Damascus governorate, which is the biggest in Syria. I mean, we see all the trappings of the enablers of corruption. So I think our job today is to look ahead and hold these people to account. And look back.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, I have. I just wanted to ask if you still think that journalism and media is still like a limited field, or like how is it now to be a woman and a journalist? Did it change, or yeah?
Did it change? As I said, you know, the challenges have changed. The technology has changed. The ability of getting away with murder and crime has changed. It's not. Today, it's much easier to kill a journalist, to cripple a journalist, to jail a journalist, to spy on a journalist. I mean, they infiltrated my phone with Pegasus 6 times. The first time it happened, I nearly had a nervous breakdown because I was worried about my sources, not about myself. Then I was having these dreams of, you know, the policemen coming to my bed with their rifles to take me away. It was horrible, but second time, the third time, it was okay. I was called into the intelligence and asked to make a choice between OCCRP and my country. And I said, what a question. I love both. So it's not easy. And the worst thing is, we are not properly paid. Really, we are not properly paid. So I think every journalist today has to find a way to substitute income. You stick to your mission, but maybe you can do some research on the side. You stick to your profession, but maybe you can do a master of ceremony for a respected company or a respected mission. We have to think of how to make money because the job is not paying. Social media could allow us, if you start your channels on Instagram and the rest, you could make some money, but it's not easy.
I'm sorry, but my question was, do women, for example, like my generation, women or like young journalists, would face the same thing that you face because you were one of a few women journalists, or you think that with like all the work that you guys have done, then it at least have changed it?
They will always try to stop you from saying the truth. Yani it's going to be a struggle from getting the facts, to writing the story, to fact-checking the story, to putting the story out. Because you're a journalist, I don't talk about myself as a woman. I don't want to look at myself as a woman. I'm sorry. I don't look at myself as a woman.
We could have a whole session about that, but we're really, a last word, Rana, was it worth it?
Of course. And if I had to reinvent myself, I would choose to do the same.
Thank you.